I know that Lee will be joining us, but we'll start with some of the procedural stuff at the beginning. We'll call the meeting to order. The
Pledge of Allegiance.
Celebration Joint Committee meeting called to order at 4:01 on Monday, January 27th, Thursday, January 27th.
February 27th.
February 27th.
Yep, I know.
Do we have any owners online? No. Has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
We'll call the meeting to order. We want a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll motion.
Did we want to adopt with some additions? I think Lee had a couple.
Yeah, we just need a second.
Oh.
Yeah, I'll second.
What would we like to change? Add to?
Sorry, I think we probably want to talk about rules for how we conduct meetings and how these meetings are supposed to be run. I'm not sure there are any because Disney kind of did it on their own, and there's some discussion about that.
Okay, I've got that. What else? I'd like to add approving the meeting minutes, so we'll do that as a next item.
Also, we forgot one thing too. We discussed back when we were supposed to have budget meetings, or we're supposed to do our respective budgets. We talked about starting in January. So, and I know that was a CROA request, which I totally understand. So we should probably do that ASAP. And I'm not sure if that's maybe not CJC or maybe that's the combined CROA/CANOA, but that was a request that we agreed to.
Yeah, I think along those lines, I think the intent was to start early this year, but I think with CANOA, right, you had 2 more people to put on your board, and then you had to recertify who was going to be on CJC, and then with the new CROA board coming in and who would be on CJC, I think that's a perfect March conversation for CJC.
That's fine. We could put it. I mean, almost it sounds like we don't even need it on the agenda if it probably should be pushed to March anyway. So that makes sense.
And then also, did you want to add discussion on the water tower?
Yeah, we should get an update on the water tower for sure. But yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with those changes, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We have meeting minutes from Thursday, December 5th and Thursday, December 19th. Is there a motion to approve these?
Where were those minutes at? Did we get a copy of those in the email?
It should have been sent out, but
I don't think it was part of the.
Yeah, I didn't get minutes.
It was not part of this one, but they should have been sent out after maybe the meetings. Lauren can send those now, so we can table this.
till later.
We can table this till later.
So it looks like somebody just joined us, by the way. I don't know who on a phone.
Yeah.
It's Jim Pinot.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Hello.
Hi. Sorry, they took the meeting off the celebration website for February, so that's why I called in.
Apologies on that.
You already passed the owner's comments, right?
We did, but we can go back if you have anything you'd like to state.
I would. I know I was at the board meeting last night and presented something, so I apologize to those guys. But if I could, I would like to.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, I guess you might know I'm a relatively active resident and a strong supporter of local businesses. And I was quite surprised when I heard that the Island Village and Celebration Point businesses and restaurants were being iced out of the farmers market, the marathon, and other celebration events over conflicts of interest. Scoops here in Island Village has been trying to get into the farmers market before their store even opened, but and they can't because of conflict of interest with Kilwins, I guess, who doesn't really sell homemade ice cream like they do and doesn't participate in the farmers market and isn't even open at that time. They also wanted to hand out free ice cream to the marathon participants and were told they couldn't because Kilwins was handing out candy. I know the Celebration Brewery was also nixed from a certain event by the tavern, and I don't think they even participated in that event. But I'm sure that when Taco Don Andres opens here next month, there'll also be mixed from participation due to avocados. I mean, all of these businesses pay into Kanoa, and for many of these locations, it's their livelihood. So I would just like to see us supporting all businesses in Celebration equally. It just seems the better thing to do. And thank you for listening to me.
Thanks, Jim.
Meeting minutes are in their inboxes if they want to look at it
Okay.
while we're doing other stuff.
Meeting minutes are in your inboxes if you want to look at those. They're single pages. I mean, you've seen how short these last 2 meetings have been. So look at those if you want. We can come back or we can move it to the next meeting. This 2023 CJC audit, has that been shared as well?
Yes, that was in the packet.
Okay, so motion to approve the 2023 CJC audit. Is there a motion?
Yeah.
I'll motion. I'll second.
Any discussion on the audit?
Yeah, just share some information with Lee and Mike that the 2023 that CROA had was, the 2023 CROA one was a bit behind, and we worked through them to get that taken care of and resolved this past month. From the CROA standpoint, they said that they would have the 2024 done by end of April. So we have their attention, and we were satisfied with the report that they did for us. There was some back and forth on the prior one, which I don't need to get into all the details there, but something that I think is appropriate for them to continue on. They have familiarity. The price is appropriate. So something that we are using the same auditing firm for the CROA, and recommendation here would be to use it for CJC as well.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Andrew, I saw that. I guess one of the meetings was online, so I actually saw them present or whatever. So I totally understand.
And we have to approve this audit so that they can start working on the 2024 audit.
Yeah.
So that's the timeline here. But we're right in line, timeline-wise, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
They've already started CROAs.
great. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, let's move to discussion of the CJC bylaws. So I will start because I added this to the agenda. The purpose of this was to discuss, we can, as a board, make the terms of the cost sharing agreement be part of the bylaws, and then we don't have to have these negotiations and conversations repeatedly year after year after year. So just putting all the cards on the table and looking at all the numbers, we are between 16 and 20%. 16% on the conservative side, 20% on the high side of the Kanoa contribution. And so is there any interest from all parties in having the discussion starting somewhere in that range of numbers as a bylaw amendment to have that be the annual contribution?
Wait,
Go ahead.
you said that there's two separate things. I think I don't want to speak for you, Jared, but you said two separate things. First, you said you could change the bylaws for the terms of the agreement, but now you're saying put a percentage in the agreement as in addition, two separate things or one thing. I just want to make sure we're talking
Rather than, sure, I'll clarify and jump in and correct me if I'm not saying this right. Rather than the cost sharing agreement, which is a separate negotiation that we have, we can set and make part of the bylaws so that it is just enshrined for the future as what that is, a percentage, and that becomes what is the binding agreement, and the cost sharing agreement is something that doesn't need to be renegotiated over and over.
So the proposal, the current bylaws is the default amount that we've been talking about, is that you would pay by the number of essentially accounts that you have, which would drastically reduce Kanoa's contribution to like the $23,000, $30,000 range. The proposal, from what I'm understanding from Jared, is that rather than leaving that in the bylaws as the default amount and continuing to do these cost sharing agreements year after year, is to amend the CJC bylaws to effectively adopt a percentage cost sharing agreement and remove that parcel or that door calculation from the bylaws.
Basing it off of the actual numbers, which is still part of the negotiation now of what we're discussing. Right now, it's lying, it can be calculated between 16 and 20%. Where that lands is completely up for discussion.
I mean, you guys do a budget every single year, so I don't know why you would expect for us to commit to 3 years out or a permanent contribution like that. It's also 20% or even 16%. I'm not even sure that that's a legitimate or fair number. I went through the numbers the other day, and you know, most of the insurance costs that we're being asked to pay now, 20% of are for parks and pools and amenities that even our business owners can't use. There's $86,000 in IT infrastructure when maybe 5% of that is used for Kanoa businesses. I don't see how that would be fair to our businesses.
Okay.
So I guess just stepping back from the percentage discussion, is it something that at the end of this year, we would want to introduce something into the bylaws of what that go forward process looks like?
That's my hope. And why I brought this up here.
And I guess another question I'll ask is, right, from a Crow standpoint, we just did a 3-year with Grand Manors. Is it, and not to put you on the spot or you need to think about it, let us know, but is Kanoa committed to, 2 more years, the 3 years with Grand Manors, and it's just a matter of figuring out what the percentage responsibility should be?
That's a good question. Let me jump in, Andrew, because you brought up a different point about the agreement. So Jared mentioned the discussion was CJC bylaws. So I also thought, okay, maybe there's some other bylaws. He has a list of a couple things. One of them is, interesting enough, how you talk about the agreement. We cannot change management companies without CJC's approval. So that would be another bylaw that, if we're throwing out bylaw discussions, that we would like to discuss as well.
Sure, and that's fair for this. This is about all the bylaws conversation.
Yeah, right. I didn't know which ones you were talking exactly. So I came with my list, I guess. I should, you should say.
Fair.
But so Andrew, your question is it a question, would Kanoa be interested in this, or at the end of the day, putting a percentage sounds like a good plan, right? I mean, it sounds like a sound argument. The converse argument to this would be, you also control the CJC budget in a way. So let's just say the CJC budget decided to go up $1 million. I'm just going to throw that out. And then we have to pay, let's say we agree to 20%. That 20% goes up every single year because your budget's going up. So, let's just say next year your budget goes up. I'm throwing out a round number. Let's say you want to add $1 million to the CJC budget. We would be responsible for 20% of it, no matter what you do. You have the majority of voting on the CJC board. So that doesn't sound like a sound proposal to Kanoa, because there's no backstop for us, if you understand, if you take it to an extreme, basically.
Yeah, no, if there was an unflattering Crow board, then yeah, with that majority vote, they could rake Kanoa over, which wouldn't be appropriate or fair. So I hear that, and maybe there needs to be some type of cap increase or something that is a protection to offset that, for that risk that you guys see. Yeah, but I'm just more of looking at it as, and I think Jared brought it up too, the discussion of let's kind of point the trajectory in the same area so that we know what we're trying to meet, rather than you have different demands that we do and we're not even anywhere close. So how do we want to set that course of steps that will continue to progress throughout the year?
I hear you. I think that we should sit down and figure out what the number is, whether it's 18, 20, 5-8% or something like that. We believe right now we're overpaying. The issue too that we have is that it's going to grow. So next year, your services are going to grow. You're probably going to increase CROA dues. You're probably going to want to there's going to be a percentage of that's going to go in CJC. So that's going to always go up, right? It's going to completely go up. You're adding more residents to offset in terms of you get more revenue. We are getting no more revenue. We have no more, let's call it residents. We have no more businesses that are adding to our costs, our revenue. So it's an unfair and it's an unattainable situation for us to continue this way. We have to come up with a board. And I agree, Jared, maybe you guys CROA should want to know what's coming basically, and prepare for a certain amount and that kind of stuff. But I'm not sure. I think we have to do a lot of internal discussions ourselves to figure out how to get there because, right now, we believe I don't know, what are we at, 20% now, 20 something? It's probably too much.
18 to 19.
Yeah, 19, so 20, right. And if we kept the percentage, let's say we just agreed on 20%, you're going to add how many more residents in the next 3 years? Let's say we do a 3-year agreement. You're going to add X amount of residents in those years. That budget's going to go up. So I think that we have a lot of work to do to kind of make us feel comfortable to kind of do that. And we haven't done that yet ourselves. So it's not really your fault. We haven't sat down and said, where should we really be, in the numbers? And I believe at 5 this year, I think we're overpaying. And then I'm sure when the budget comes around, it's going to be increased by a 5 to 6 to 7 to 8%, so that's going to be even more. I don't think that's for the businesses. I don't think that's right. Now, certainly we should get to a number you guys should count on, but I don't know what it is yet. And I think we have some work.
Just to be clear, I wasn't asking so that CROA I'm not advocating anything for CROA. I want to make CJC smoother in its operation and in all the negotiations so that we're focused on other things other than this year after year after year.
Understandable.
That was the intent.
Sure. Yeah, no, and I understand that. I think our budgets are not done, 3 years at a time. It's done yearly. So, I think it's hard to get there, but it's not like Andrew said, there's some backstops, we could get to practically anywhere as long as we make sure that we, discuss everything and put everything on the table, so. We're not against everything.
To what you were saying, though, the comment I heard was, the increasing costs and everything, the growth of CROA, which I think that's where you want the due diligence to say, with Island Village going out and increasing, is that truly a joint expense or a CROA expense, right? And I'm just going to use an example of a new inspector, right? That we're going to need a new inspector to check houses and things of that nature. That's something that's going to fall in the CROA budget, not the CJC. So as Celebration grows, I think it's looking at what is currently at CJC, getting that in a right place, and knowing that that should grow at a slower rate than what the CROA budget is because of that added growth we're bringing into town.
I agree, but I would also say that what we're paying right now, because the time frame, we didn't want to drop a ball on the CJC and CROA and literally go to a change CROA's budget drastically, but the money that we paid roughly $570,000 that Canoa is paying to the CJC is way too much for what we're getting. That's why we wanted to add the marketing person, which is not there. And there's some other things. So yes, you're right, Andrew, but for going forward, but also the number that we're paying now. You could prepare and should prepare that it's not going to be $570,000 next year. There's just no way. It's not happening.
Right. I think from a starting point, it's Canoa is looking to pay less than what you did this past year. And I think that's fair. So now it's, where do we get to?
Yes,
right?
Agreed.
And again, through the budget of, are there things in the budget that is strictly Canoa? Are there things that are strictly CROA? Then that's discussions that will continue to be happening to then determine who's responsible for what. And then to Jared's point of, if that's 16% or something, then
Yeah, right.
let's try to settle on something as we agreed with what the CJC budget looks like. This is what the expectation for a percentage makes sense, and go from there.
Agreed.
So when is your next board cycle? When is your next board appointed? Or when does that happen on the Kanoa side?
Not until the fall, so they'll continue with 3 until the fall.
Okay. When can you have these conversations so that we can come back to this group and talk further?
We probably need to schedule a workshop with Lauren and really go through budgets line by line and kind of see where we are, what's fair. I think that's going to be step one.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess in thinking of a plan, right, would you want to look at use March as Crow and Kanoa do their due diligence on the current budget to then, and then you can do some organizational stuff in your March one for then April is initial discussions of where people stand on certain items and what's in, what's out, what is responsibility, that kind of thing, and kick that off in April.
Fair.
I don't know if this would work from a budget perspective, but the other, I hear what you're saying, Lee, as it gets to, or apologies, it might have been Mike, about we don't want a huge increase in the budget, which then a percentage kind of throws everything off. The argument of that there's going to be limited commercial development beyond what's kind of already in celebration being done is true, right? There's not any significant addition of a lot of commercial going in Island Village. The boulevard does have some space, but it's not like they're going to be, multiple other, huge, business complexes going in out there. I don't know if it's the type of thing that the other option is they, instead of doing a percentage, you look at a flat rate. And you say that this is the number, and then there's a built-in percentage increase year over year. So, because in theory, yes, that budget is going to vary a little bit based off of inflation and whatever the actual costs are. But I don't know, just another idea to bat around. I don't even know if that's technically possible. But
yeah, we could use like something like CPI for that too, like where we pick a flat number and then use a CPI calculation.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. It's a possibility. I mean, at the end of the day, if your lawn care company came to you and said, fuel prices went up X%, they can always come back to you. There's ways around this kind of thing. I mean, we don't want to be capped. First of all, we don't want to cap if the cost drastically went up, that you might have to come back. So we have to account for that as well. But also what Eric said is, yeah, we want to make sure. But I would say also, Eric, that I think that most of that land that we're talking about and stuff like that, that may be perceived empty. Some of that land, people are already paying, there is owners that are already paying on that. So I don't know how many pieces of parcels that are actually left that could be added. And Lauren, we can go through the numbers. There's very few actually. Yeah. And that's kind of my point, right? I mean, there's not, it's kind of like the budget right now is the budget. Yeah. So it's not intended, whereas Crowa's budget, there's going to be a significant, level of increase that we're going to need to continue to service. And also just the services that Crowa provides are just different. So I get it. So that's kind of where I was trying to think, is there another way that we could tackle this so that everyone's kind of comfortable? It makes it an easy, look, we've known going into this that Crow is going to need to start to figure out, how do we manage, a budget without the same level of contribution from Kanoa. On the flip side of that, we also kind of just want some security in knowing, well, what is that going to be, so that then we can start to look at some of these longer range planning, especially as we get into more and more expensive projects. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah.
I think our action item here, that is a workshop to go over with Lauren numbers, and we'll put together all that stuff. So I'll look to get something scheduled. Is March okay for everyone for that?
Yeah. Except spring break time, like the 15th to the 20 something. I'm out of the country, but yeah.
So maybe after that then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's great. I think for us just sitting down and going through the CJC budget and saying, Okay, like, Mike mentioned, technology, you know what I mean? Is it really this much percentage? What's fair? At the end of the day, we just want to make sure it's fair, and we want to make sure you feel like it's fair. I mean, we should come out of that hoping that it's a long-term plan. I agree. It's a good idea, Jared, but
I think
let's hope
that, and
we
that's
can
the
get
goal,
there.
because I agree it's not fair, and I'm sure that I will be in an unpopular minority, but it's not fair and it's too high. And it's based off of this number that's ridiculous and this number that's very reasonable but isn't enough. So
Right.
we have to kind of start from scratch from the imaginary Disney numbers that were there and just see what are we actually spending, what are we actually getting.
Yeah.
And then figure that out, whatever it is. It may be 8%, it may be 5%, it may be 12%.
Right.
It may be 16%. We have to figure that out. But then
Right.
solidifying that as okay, here's what that is, and this is how it increases proportionately with a cap if we need a cap so that it doesn't exceed more than 5% of the previous year's contribution, whatever it happens to be, we can
Right.
figure all
The
that.
just in case issue.
Yep.
Yeah. Agreed.
So I'm gonna propose Thursday, March 27th at 3:00 to give us, an hour or 2 hours to do that, or do you want to do this in the evening?
I'll defer to the group. I can do that time.
Okay.
I can do that day.
Hold on a
Do-
second.
do
This is
people
like a
prefer
a date?
evening? March 27th.
Thursday.
We're talking during the day or this, what time are we talking about?
Which do you prefer?
A little bit later. I have an early morning, I have a CDD meeting in Winter Haven. We're usually but it's a 15-minute meeting. So I could be back here 11:30-ish, probably 12 easily.
Proposing 3:00.
Oh yeah, then I'm fine. I'm sorry. Yeah.
So
I'm
let's
good.
tentatively make it 3 PM on the 27th. None of the Crow people here may be the same, so we can't even, commit to anything there. So this can be a loose commitment, but we'll commit to that and try and make that happen and communicate it to all relevant parties.
This would be an
And it's-
Yes.
It's the joint between both or?
No, just a CJC workshop.
Okay.
CJC workshop, yeah.
That's what I thought.
And we know what the ask is for numbers and
Yeah, I think that's the question is there a Lauren, do you need to bring in somebody, a finance person that's on the phone or in the off, to really try to make this workshop really
Yep.
work? Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay.
if it could be in person, that might be more ideal as well, but I don't want to commit anyone to that. Because then we can all be looking at the same collateral.
Agreed. That'd be a better idea if we could, whoever can't, but that would be good.
Okay, we will move on to that with that as a future item.
The other item, don't forget, was the discussion that could Kanoa have a different management company. Right now, the bylaws say that it has to be approved by the CJC. So that is a discussion that, not saying we're doing it, but I'm saying that is in the bylaws and that we should probably discuss. Is that something is it to the benefit, who's it that to the benefit of, or does it benefit in any way? So that's a discussion.
Okay, we'll make sure that is part of that as well. Because we'll have to vote on all this after that March 27th meeting.
Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm making some notes. Next topic, rules of conduct for the meeting. How are we governed? What do we follow? I'm going to turn to Lauren.
So technically you are not so for your articles of incorporation, you are not a 720 corporation. However, during the litigation with the downtown area, there was a arbitration decision that classified CJC as falling under the rules of 720. It's not binding. It's not a full legal opinion, but the recommendation from council is to treat CJC as much as a 720 as possible, just to be safe and above board.
I have no issue with that. Is there a discussion about that?
No, I think we need some, maybe I'm wrong. Is there anything written about how we conduct our meetings or what bylaws? So if we agree to that statement that you didn't really say statement, but that discussion, if we agree to that, and we say that we are not a 720 because we don't want to obviously put ourselves in that legally, but saying that we will follow those rules, which means meetings can change within 72 hours, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, whatever those things, maybe should we put that in writing, how we do that? And we allow homeowner comment, which means when we talk I guess comment of stakeholders would be business owners and residents. They could attend the meetings because, I mean, there's only a certain amount of people that should be allowed at these meetings, right? So maybe there's some set of rules that we adopt, I guess, as a group.
We can do that. I mean, 720 is pretty clear, so I don't know that we need to reintroduce something that already exists and that is already publicly available and is already.
And residents and business owners can attend CJC already.
Yeah.
It's published on the Celebration website. It's noticed via the same methods as Kanoa and CROA meetings.
So it doesn't change anything. It just
Okay.
really codifies what we're doing in a direction.
That's fine. That's fine. So it's meeting notices have to be out. I don't even know what the rules are anymore, quite
48
honestly.
hours ahead of
48
time. So
hours. Okay. So you can't.
notice and the agenda have to be 48 hours ahead of time.
Okay. And you can't change a meeting time, whatever, 48 hours. We'd have to switch it. I mean, I'm
Unless
fine. I
it's
just
a-
want to make sure we're
Unless
consistent.
it's an emergency, and the emergency is defined in 720. I don't remember the specific verbiage, but
Real small.
yeah.
It's, yeah,
So,
Okay.
and then,
Yeah, we shouldn't unless we had to, right? Unless
Yeah.
it's an emergency.
But the 720 even defines what is an emergency. We don't decide what an emergency is. The guidelines do.
so
Okay.
I mean, I guess, Lee, if you wanted something more formal, you could, this board could adopt a resolution that you are agreeing to follow the guidelines of even though you're not a 720 organization, you're agreeing to follow the guidelines.
The
of
meeting
7
guidelines.
Yeah, the
With
meeting,
regard to meetings.
the meeting guidelines of 720, just to ensure transparency, and accessibility to members.
Yeah. And maybe something, again, this is a discussion item. It may be something we ask our attorney, does that put us in a position where,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? We may not want to do that, but yeah. So
I mean,
They have recommended that we do.
say that again.
Well, we've
Something
recommended
as
that
far
we
as that,
follow
we
it,
don't
but not
recognize
necessarily.
ourselves, I would say something like, we don't recognize ourselves as a 720, but to the best of our ability, we try to follow 720 guidelines or something like that.
Yeah.
And the
Open.
attorney has recommended that we do follow 720.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you need to adopt anything formally, just as long as everybody agrees that these are the, I guess, rules of the road.
This is when we're deferring to something, we'll
Yeah.
defer to 720. I mean, that's fine. This doesn't even need to be an action item.
No.
Yeah.
It's just
Do we have a consensus on this so that everybody is satisfied
I
with
think
the
so.
whole process?
I think so. Yeah.
I will
Okay.
actually circulate the 720 meeting section so everybody has it, just so that, because it's, hundreds, thousands of pages. I'll send the 3 or 4 that are specifically about meetings so that we.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. I'm not on a homeowners association per se anywhere. So yeah, so my stuff is CDD or corporate boards. So yeah, it'd be different. So, and I know the laws have changed, so.
Great.
But can I ask another question in terms of, we do have residents on right now, or actually, people that are interested in this that discuss. So that discussion, they brought up some points. And one thing I like in some meetings is really sometimes, instead of people saying some things in a vacuum, should we, in terms of, you're conducting the meeting, Jared, so this is what I'm asking is, should we acknowledge what those residents said and somehow respond to them? Because I always think that this is the only way that they're gonna be able to talk to the CJC board. You know what I mean? There's, for instance, that the discussion about the I guess I think it was the marathon not allowing I guess it's scoops basically down there. I mean, very simple to say that the marathon at Lexington was the one that actually, it's not a CJC. That is not part of the CJC. That was
So,
a
yeah.
Lexington,
Go
so
into
we
your
just tell them
specific
where to go
question.
basically to help them the next time.
Yeah, they disappeared. Going to your specific question, I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue responding individually to residents from CJC. I wish the CROA organization did that when members
Yeah,
spoke.
me too.
That sits with the president, I guess. The president, if we're following 720, we are now following 720. That sits with the president. I have no issue engaging, because what's the point of coming up and saying something and getting no feedback?
I agree. I
100%.
completely agree. It's unfair.
So yes,
Yeah.
I have no issue with that. I don't think anyone has an issue with that, because it just resolves the frustration and lets people move on.
Yeah. So I would, and I think that we should be that, because the CJC seems to be like this organization that might be secret in some way or that kind of stuff. But if we're answering questions, and even in the CROA end, residents come and, they don't want to just talk and have people shake their heads. These are the people that could answer them. And if we can answer them. So I would say to those that have asked that question that's probably better to go to the Kanoa. And also maybe Lauren could answer that in terms of the way, because those are completely different things at the end of the day. It's really not a CJC thing, to answer that, but
I agree. I think that's the most important part of this here, is that we have to answer the questions on behalf of our CJC roles, because there are times when we can answer. I can say, well, in CROA, we think this,
right?
But that's not what this meeting is for.
Right.
So Jim, to answer your comments about the farmers market and the marathon, I would suggest you set up a meeting with Nikki. She can answer all your questions about the parameters for the farmers market, because her team is the one that coordinates that with the vendor that runs it.
I have talked to Nikki, so I will continue to talk to her, but I think she seemed a little miffed about the whole thing as well.
If copy me on the email, and I'll sit in with you, and we'll see what we can get to a resolution on.
I'd be happy to do that.
I think all three boards would be interested in that feedback. CJC, Kanoa, and CROA would all be interested in that, the resolution.
I'd like to make a comment, because I have emails between me and the marathon folks, and both Scoops and the brewery were told that they could give out free samples at the marathon. So I have no idea where that information is coming from.
Scoops was there, and both the marathon was, and I think even the brewery were both there at the marathon. So actually,
they were both told that that was okay. So I don't know where that information is coming from.
It comes from the owners of Scoops.
They were there.
Yeah, I think quite honestly, and again,
cream.
we don't want to answer this as a CJC, but I think that because Lexington is a sponsor, and I don't want to put it in, is that they offered it to the first group that Lexington's going to offer that event to specifically is going to be one of their retail owners down there. So I think that would be the first thing. But I would talk to Nikki, because maybe she doesn't have this information, and Lauren can pass on, and maybe Mike can pass that on. And that venue is the better venue to this, not really the CJC, but we could get your thing answered and I think make you feel better.
Okay, I will be happy to do that.
Moving on to the next topic of the water tower update, specifically related to the signage and the pulley.
Right next to Jared in our office is the basis of the equipment to install said pulley system.
Wow.
Well, what are you waiting for, Jared?
On my way home, I'll put it up.
On your way home, put that up.
So Christian and his team I think they're waiting on one more piece. So as soon as that's in, they'll be getting the lift out here so they can install it, and we will be on our way with banners on the water tower.
So it's all in-house labor?
Doing it in-house.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
And
the
the
only
banners,
large expense will be the renting the lift to get them up there.
yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
have a
They
double.
do
Is there
the
anything
lighting at the same time.
Oh, yeah, exactly, Mike. That was kind of my point. Is there any other thing that we need to do at the same time that we have the lift?
Yeah, you won't see the sign without the lighting at night, that's for sure, but yeah.
Yeah, so the lighting that's out there doesn't meet the design guideline requirements, and they don't work, but the electrical works. So Christian is looking at solutions to just use the existing electrical runs and replacing the lights, and he believes that he can do that in-house as well.
I agree. Just a new fixture.
Yes, it's a new fixture. It's installing a new fixture.
Is that ground mounted?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can figure that out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're all, there's 4 lights on the ground,
So
one
if
per side.
he was straddling multiple roles with not having Walter, the supervisor, in place. This is his second week in place. And there's 2 vacant tech positions. So now that Walter's in place and can run the day-to-day of the team, Christian is really more focused on these projects like the water tower project, and we can get those moving quicker.
Anything else on that? Has anyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes? Can we circle back for approval on that, or does everyone want more time with those?
Did anybody approve it? Did anybody look at it? Did you look at it, Jared?
I did. I've looked at them.
Okay,
Yeah,
if somebody
the
did.
one-pagers.
I'm fine if somebody looked at it, so
I mean, to
Yeah.
me, it is an accurate representation of what happened at the last.
I make a motion to approve then.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Andrew can have.
Aye.
Aye.
Board comments. Anyone have anything to add that we haven't discussed? I will say, I want to apologize. It was my fault that the last meeting was moved last minute. It was unintentional and completely my fault, and I accept responsibility for that. We've now established what our policies are going forward, and in the future, I will just have missed that meeting in those circumstances.
We could have canceled it, I guess, too, either one, and pushed it later. So yeah,
Sure.
no big deal. Right. And I think I appreciate you saying that. I think one thing is we just felt like if Kanoa wasn't on there for you to have that meeting without us would be I don't know.
Poor form.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, exactly.
I don't think we would have done that. And as the way the vote went, I was actually the only outlier there. So
Yeah. Well, no, it just ended up being that way. But we had, Mike and I both had meetings. I had to cancel them. But anyway, water under the bridge. I appreciate it, Jared. I think just some rules are fine. And if we follow them, I'm happy. And I don't mean to be a jerk about it. So I apologize for that as well.
anyone have anything else?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
I'll second it. You can have it.
All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao.
Take care.